Hey, it's your Lunar Witch, and we're talking about Gettysburg, Pennsylvania's most emotionally charged haunted location. And this is Moon Brews. I want to have a trigger warning, unfortunately, at the top of this show because it's gruesome and horrific. So I wanted to make sure I got it out of the way before I accidentally traumatize people that don't want to be traumatized. So trigger warning for war. We're talking about the Civil War, child abuse, and child death in particular. So please be aware of this before listening to this episode. This is your warning now. All right, and with that being said, let's move the planchette to the main part of the story. 777 Baltimore Street, Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, stands a tall, red brick building. A building that has seen thousands of deaths including those of children. We are at the National Homestead, the Gettysburg Orphanage. This building is in fact a short walk away from Cemetery Hill, and if you don't know Cemetery Hill, that is a landform on the Gettysburg battlefield, where the war took place from July 1st to the 3rd, 1864. Approximately 7,000 soldiers were killed across these battlefields, which was 2% of the population at the time. 7,000 soldiers, guys, in just a few days' battle. A bloody battle that soaked the grounds of Gettysburg forever, a town that now holds dark energy in the soil, and with landmarks that have seen and experienced it all. 1,200 bodies were never actually found after the battles. These bodies now lay underneath the modern city of Gettysburg, under cemented sidewalks and buildings today. Prior to the orphanage opening and running basically as an orphanage, the building at 777 Baltimore Street was actually standing and used as a makeshift hospital for all the injured and dying soldiers from the battle. Like, are you kidding me? Soldiers who were at the brink of death were taken to this building for care. This care included amputations. Amputations of arms and legs of these brutalized soldiers. It was said that so many amputations had taken place that there was a 4-foot-tall wall of amputated arms and legs stacked onto one another. And if you were a soldier who had mortal wounds, you were placed in the dark, wet, cold basement to die alongside other suffering soldiers. Listening to moans and groans of fellow soldiers as you lay there in despair on a cold stone floor. The wounds were so brutal that it was said that the soldiers had made deals with the devil down in the basement of 777 Baltimore Street. Deals with the devil to take their souls and end their suffering. With these types of exchanges and wishes, had these dying soldiers accidentally opened up portals in the basement as their dying wish? Portals to dark dimensions as they welcomed dark entities to take them into the afterlife. The building has seen thousands of lives taken in bloodshed, had soldiers survive live amputations in the dining area, and was also the place of souls passing into the next life down in the dungeon-like basement. After the war, a time where thousands of men had perished, thousands of women and children were left all alone without a husband or a father. And at that time, women were not seen fit for raising children. These mothers were not allowed to have custody of their own children after their husbands had died during battle. This was because women weren't primarily the breadwinner, I would say, so they didn't deem them fit to take care of children, their own children. So thousands of children were taken away from their mothers and needed a place to stay and be raised. In response to such a great loss, in 1866, the National Homestead of Gettysburg was established by Dr. John F. Bournes and funded by an 1870 Pennsylvania bill. The orphanage was created to house and educate children in hopes of giving them a second chance at life. It was open for children between the ages of 4 to 15. Boys were sent off for work at the age of 15, and girls were sent off to find a husband around the same age, which again is gross, but go off. It was a beacon of hope for Gettysburg and the children at the time, until the orphanage took a turn for the worse, and turned into a place of tragedy, despair, and evil. The headmistress changed in the early 1870s to Rose Carmichael. Rosa was a strict disciplinarian who quickly earned a reputation for being abusive, sadistic, and unfit for the care of children. And unfortunately, she ruled as the headmistress until roughly 1878. She reigned the orphanage for a long and torturous 8-year-long period. It is known that one child had died on the property while she was the headmistress, and others would get sick and just simply disappear. What happened to these other children when they would get sick? Or, disappear? I do believe, now, Rosa, don't come back from the dead and get me now, but I do believe she had more to do with the children disappearing than what was being portrayed. If you haven't seen my latest videos posted on my socials, go look now. YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, please. I visited this actual orphanage this past weekend and it was fucking insane. Intense. Horrifying. We were able to explore and learn all about the history and the tormenting Rosa did to these children. Trigger warning, trigger warning, trigger warning. The basement where her worst of her punishments unfolded was absolutely horrifying, straight out of a horror movie. The staircases down the cellar are half the width of a normal staircase and lead you straight down into a pit from hell. There is a clip of me walking down these stairs. Go look at it. It's spooky as hell. The cellar is made up from large stones and only stands about 6 feet tall, so in some areas you have to duck your head. These large stone walls bear witness to all the unknown torturing that Rosa had performed on these children. There's one documented case where Rosa punished misbehaving children by making them stand motionless for hours and even sometimes days until they collapsed from dehydration, exhaustion, and more. Girls who would quote-unquote misbehave, I say misbehave because it's Rosa's determination of misbehave. God knows, God forbid you left your teacup out for too long. That was probably misbehaving according to Rosa. Or honestly, probably even blinking. But girls who quote-unquote would misbehave were punished by being forced to wear boy clothing and sent out in public. And I'm sure, listen, I look like a man today. And I know there's a lot of women out there that can relate. You're just wearing your t-shirt and, sometimes you just look like a man. But back in the 1800s, that must have been extremely embarrassing to be a little girl having to be forced to dress into little boy attire. And we do know that one child had died in the care of Rosa. This is actually documented in reports. And other children, again, would simply just go missing. In this cellar specifically, we can assume what had happened to these children. After the orphanage had closed, investigators found multiple chains and shackles lodged into the stone walls of the basement, presumably where she chained multiple children to the walls of the cold, damp, and pitch-black basement. And this wasn't even her worst punishment. Younger children, whose wrists were too tiny for shackles, experienced a different type of torture. Large wooden barrels were placed in the basement and filled with cold water. She would submerge young children into these barrels and tie their arms to the side of the barrel so they couldn't move. She would leave them there to freeze in the dark, cold water. Rosa even used solitary confinement as a form of punishment to these children. Of course she did, because she's the fucking devil. There was one space down in the basement where she would lock away children for days at a time without food or water. It was down a long corridor in the back of the cellar. Honestly, it looked like part of the stone wall had been taken down, like as if you were to put, not a stick of dynamite, that's literally insane, but something that would kind of break down the wall one small area, if that makes sense. Or I guess if you chipped it away with a chisel, but I don't know, it looked like very irregular shaped hole in the wall. Once you ducked your head in enough and slid your way through the hole in the wall, you emerged into the dungeon. A windowless, small, cramped space with dirt floors and fallen stone. There was no place to stand when we went inside. It was horrifying. Here, she would force the children to wear shackles or even iron collars, and they were left in the pitch-black solitary confinement for God knows how long. The children also said that rats would chew on their fingers and toes when they were locked down there, and it was so dark in the dungeon that you couldn't even see your hand in front of your face. So when we were down here, I actually caught an orb on camera, so make sure you go check that out. And I was the last to leave this little space too, and it creeped me the hell out, and it was terrifying. Guys, it was terrifying. If you have the chance to go, please go. So Rosa had a child that quote-unquote worked for her. He acted as Rosa's, they call him a thug. Not my words, the site's words. His name was Richard Hutchinson, and he was 19 years old. He would, I would say, quote-unquote, assist Rosa with her cruel punishments. and the children called him Stick Boy. This was because he only had one arm, and would use that one arm to hold a stick and beat the children if told to do so. The children said Richard smelled so badly that they could smell him when he was coming close, so at least they had a chance to hide before the beatings. One day, a child came up to the orphanage door and knocked upon it. He was looking for his friend, Robert Turner, who lived at the orphanage. Rosa had opened the door, and when the little boy had asked to play with Robert, Rosa responded and said, quote, "No, Robert is dead," quote. Rosa had claimed that this boy had died from, quote-unquote, intestinal problems, and Rosa buried him in the backyard. Authorities came to investigate his death and asked Rosa where the body was, located outside. She was unable, this mother effer was unable to tell them where she buried a child's body in her backyard. So they said they used a poking stick, whatever the hell that is, to poke around the back until they found the body of Robert. They had performed an autopsy on Robert and found out that he actually died from starvation. We all know what had happened here. He didn't die from quote-unquote intestinal problems. Rosa wasn't feeding him. There was another confirmed case of starvation after they were remodeling the home in more modern times. A child's rib bone was found in the walls of the home. A doctor investigated this bone and did confirm that it showed lack of nutrition and starvation. So, oh my God, are you so for real right now? In the walls? So was she burying children in the walls? Or was she trying to get rid of the body and hid parts of the body inside the wall? Are you kidding me? This is so gross. And a second confirmed case of starvation? I mean, how many more are there? How many children actually died in this home? Christmas Eve, 1875. Bystanders were walking past the orphanage at night and heard the sound of a child screaming, help me, please." These bystanders found the child by the name of Georgie London locked inside the outhouse. Let me remind you, it's Christmas Eve in Pennsylvania. This boy could have froze to death out there if the bystanders didn't come and save him. So, suspicion started to arise from the discovery of Robert Turner's body in the back and the screaming child, Georgie London, who was stuck inside the outhouse. People would come by to the orphanage and ask to see the children. This is when Rosa would hide away the sickest children. Sickest children that she made sick. Let's keep that there. Not just sick because of the freaking flu, because we know she made them sick. And she would open the door and insist that all of the children were happy and healthy. The outsiders would then try to come in, but she would burst into a rage and scream that it was a private organization and that nobody was allowed to step foot inside. Is she not showing her true colors here? Turning into a fit of rage when people want to just see healthy children? Eventually, Rosa's thug, Richard Hutchinson, got fed up with Rosa as well. He walked barefoot for 20 miles to the next closest city in Pennsylvania, and this was the city of Waynesboro, Pennsylvania. He walked all this way to tell authorities in a different city because he had believed that the authorities in Gettysburg were like, quote unquote, in with Rosa, which I don't blame him because a child literally died in the back. Well, not in the back. A child literally died in this home and she buried him in the back without a care. And the authorities found him, confirmed that he died of starvation. And there's just speculation here. Like, no shit. If I was Richard, I'd walk all the way to California. Richard Hutchinson's brave act ended up starting a full investigation on Rosa and the orphanage. Rosa ended up being charged with 3 assault and battery charges of children. Notice that she wasn't convicted of murder. Out of these 3 assault and battery charges, she was only found guilty on 1. And this was the assault on Georgie London, the boy who was locked in the outhouse to freeze to death. And the only reason, in my opinion, that she was found guilty was because Georgie stood brave and testified against this wicked woman. Rosa's punishment by the court, which was the hardest punishment at the time for women, was a fine of $20, and she was ordered to leave the town immediately. But instead of leaving town, Rosa returned to the orphanage and continued, probably, to punish these children even worse because for some reason she thinks she's in this hierarchy and she's untouchable. She would then tell the entire city of Gettysburg that this was just a ploy and just the court system trying to slander her name. After a few months, Rosa disappeared, and no one actually knows what happened to her. There was also never a single photo taking of this woman. But there are a few theories about what happened to Rosa. So the first theory is that she ran from the city of Gettysburg and changed her name. Or that she may not had to even change her name because a lot of people believe that Rosa wasn't even her name. But if this bitch actually left Gettysburg without punishment, I'm going to be pissed. So I believe the second theory. So the second theory is that she got murdered by local citizens and was buried in a field somewhere out in Gettysburg. And lastly, that Rosa may have been connected with the doctor who initiated the start of the orphanage and probably hid away together. So let's now move the plan chat to the ghosts that reside in the orphanage today. I will say, guys, I had not slept after I visited the orphanage for about 3 or 4 days. I had to sage the entire house to get a full night's rest. I'm not even kidding you. I was down in the torture basement and also the small back dungeon, and there were times where I got full body chills down there for absolutely no reason. I truly think I may have brought some wicked energy home with me, and it took me 3 days until I remembered to sage the house, and I swear to you, I did not sleep for those 3 days. It was awful. I did not sleep, and as soon as I saged the house, though, bless I did, I was able to fall asleep. So if you're listening to this episode, I highly encourage you to sage yourself so you can fall asleep. So obviously, spirits of children have been seen and heard throughout the orphanage. Childlike giggles and whispers have been heard by guests visiting. Small handprints appear on dusty furniture and windows throughout the building as well. And of course, naturally, tugging of clothes occur, drops in temperatures, cold spots, and unexplained shadows occur. There are said to be quiet sobs coming from the basement, which literally breaks my heart. Who the hell does this to children? Like, what is wrong with your twisted ass brain? So the dungeon is considered to be the area with the most activity, and that's definitely from all the trauma that the stone walls have soaked up. The energy is thick, heavy, and unsettling. Let me tell you, when you cannot see and you have to crouch below the ceiling of the basement into a dirty-ass crawl space, it's terrifying. I cannot imagine being a child. One of the most infamous sightings of a ghost in this building is one of a little girl in a tattered dress. She has been seen throughout the entire building. She never speaks but makes eye contact before vanishing. Some people believe this is one of the children who had mysteriously disappeared and passed away in the home without authorities knowing. She is also believed to be a spirit that had stayed behind to protect the souls of the other children. How freaking sweet is that? Sweet, but not sweet, because the little poor girl is stuck, and I hope that she can get out if she is able to. Rose Carmichael herself has been seen as an entity in this home as well. She is described as tall, cold, and having a stern face. She has been seen descending the staircase, near doorways, and watching silently. There have been EVPs of her voice. It's so gross. She's on these EVPs. There has been, she has said, silence, or no talking. This mother effer is still living her days in the orphanage and screaming at children. So we can only hope that this is residual energy and not actually her still screaming at these helpless souls down there. And obviously, Civil War soldiers have been seen on the property as well. So while I visited the orphanage, I was guided by one of the tour guides from Ghostly Images at Gettysburg. This tour guide actually lives on the second floor of the orphanage, which is insane. The main floor and the basement are a part of the museum now and the paranormal attraction, while the second and third floor have been remodeled into apartment living spaces. I'm not sure who the hell is living up on these floors. I mean, this tour guide obviously, maybe he's connected on a level that we don't know. You know how sometimes you get connected to a dark, heavy space or spirits without knowing, and you kind of feel like you can't leave. I'm not sure if that's happening to him, but why would you want to stay on the second floor of the orphanage? So the tour guide gladly shared his experiences in his apartment. There are hauntings that occur on the second and third level of the home because the orphanage also existed on these floors, so it wasn't just the main and the basement. The orphanage was the entirety of the building, where those apartments now lay. In particular, he resides in the living quarters of Rosa herself. Are you kidding me? What are the chances? One night, this man was sleeping in his bed on the second floor of the orphanage, fast asleep. I guess he's been living there for quite some time because who the hell can fall asleep in a haunted ass orphanage, but who knows. Well, he happened to wake up, and he looked at the foot of his bed. He explained how he saw a dark silhouette figure of a woman wearing an old-timey hat and Victorian-ish clothing, standing, staring and lurking in his room, making direct eye contact with him. He explained how he did what any brave man would do, and he, quote, "I pulled the covers up over my face," quote. And when he drew him back down, she was gone. Another experience this man had was another one in his apartment upstairs. He was in the apartment one night and heard 3 loud knocks. He went to his front door and peered out the peephole, and there was nothing. He turned and continued to do what he was doing, and later that same night, he was sleeping and awoke to 3 loud knock, knock, knock. He froze and realized that these were the same exact knocks that had occurred earlier in the same day. He refused to get up because he knew that no one was going to be at the front door. I commend this man. And to add a crazy twist to this all, remember when Annabelle was on her ghostly adventure of the East Coast about a year ago? So go listen to my Annabelle story episode to hear all about it, but Annabelle was taken to this very orphanage, I would say, was it a few months? No, it was a year ago, about a year ago, while on her tour at Gettysburg. Visitors were able to visit, see her, and learn all about the doll in the freaking orphanage. Like, how freaking wild is that? And this was the last trip taken by Annabelle's handler, Dan Rivera, before he went back to his hotel room and passed away. There is some weird shit happening here. If you are interested in seeing more of this haunted location, look at Sam and Colby's episode. They investigated it. It also was featured on Most Terrifying Places. Let me know if you've been here, if you have any ghostly encounters yourself with ghost children. Don't forget to sage your ass because you want to be able to sleep tonight. And if you do have any stories, send your stories to moonbrewspodcast@gmail.com and we may read your spooky tale.